We begin today with a brief recap of last week's episode and some responses to that episode. I tell you about three sisters who are deciding which part of the Bible that their mom liked the best. I explain how the roots of the Judeo-Christian tradition may be different than you remember, and all of this is on the way to explaining the problem with monotheism.
Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey.
Hi, I'm Dan, this is Quark, and we are your guides for today's quest. Welcome back to Sky Pilot Faith Quest, the most controversial channel in cyberspace. Okay, that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but last week, the episode sure felt like that was true. It created a level of interest. No, that's not right. It sparked a level of angry responses that I have not experienced in literally my 10 next most controversial episodes combined. Normally, I try to respond to almost everyone who posts a response, a comment to my episodes, but last week, the level of vitriol was so high that not answering most of them became the prudent thing to do. Look, I've produced episodes about the divinity of Christ, about wondering if Jesus actually said something, the true nature of Mary, an episode about a woman being the primary and initial apostle chosen by Jesus to be the messenger of the good news of the resurrection. I've titled episodes that imply you should not buy a Bible. I've talked about homosexuality, and none of those came close to my questioning the theological soundness of hell. And I'll tell you, in all honesty, I knew there would be a little bit of controversy, but I am genuinely shocked as to how important hell is to so many people. And interestingly, everyone who sent angry responses believed in two things. Hell is absolutely real, and two, everyone other than the person who was telling me that hell is real is in real danger if they don't straighten up and fly right. Interestingly, my big discovery is that hell is never a threat for those who believe in hell. Okay, so here goes. We're going to venture again into what seems like it could be some dangerous territory. And on the surface, it may seem like a kind of similar question because, well, it's just phrased in a very similar way. But I'll tell you up front, it isn't at all the same. The problem with hell episode that I did last time genuinely challenges the notion of there being a hell and that some people will be sent to that hell. It questions all of that. This episode isn't going to say that monotheism is a problematic theological concept and should not exist. So the problem and question that looms here that we're going to be talking about is more in the realm of maybe even philosophy almost, rather than theology, if you want to put it that way. So let me just say, to put you at ease, if you are a monotheist and you like it, don't worry, I'm not going to be arguing against your position and your belief in one God. But that probably doesn't mean that you might not find some of what I'm doing in this episode to be challenging. And who knows, you too may feel compelled to write and tell me that I'm a liar and Satan's spawn, leading God's children down the path towards hell, or something like that. So let's talk terms. First term we're going to define is polytheism, and I think most people know this one or have an idea of what it means, at least. This is the idea that there are multiple gods. And to be fair, it's more specific than that. Polytheism means the believer believes in multiple gods, but also follows multiple gods. So you might have a god of war, a god of harvest, a god of rain, a god of love, and you believe in and pay homage to all of them and others when it seems appropriate to your faith. And our familiarity with polytheism is kind of interesting when so many of us who know about it are not polytheistic and haven't been for generations, but it stems from the fact that almost all of us are fairly well acquainted with, and a lot of us are even absolutely fascinated by, the Greek gods. So if I gave you a list of their names and asked you to tell me what each was the god of, I think most of us would do remarkably well. So let's say, just a pretend quiz, I say Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Aphrodite. And as I said, I imagine most of us would go, oh, those are all fairly easy. I know exactly who they are and what they were gods of. Now, though we associate Christianity and Judaism as being monotheistic, the truth is, if we go back far enough, our roots were not monotheistic. But we weren't polytheistic either. Ancient Judaism was more accurately described, and I mean really ancient Judaism, was more accurately described, and this may be a new word for some of us, is henotheistic. Now, henotheism is the worship of only one God. Now, that sounds like monotheism, but it's the acknowledgement of other gods at the same time. So the ancient Israelites worshiped one God, but seem to, at times, if you read the Bible, acknowledge the existence of other gods. They just believed theirs was better, stronger, the best.
So what is the real difference here between that and monotheism? Either way, you just worship one God.
Yeah. Okay, let me put it this way. The University of Tennessee is my favorite college football team, but there is a big difference between only rooting for them on any given Saturday and believing that they are the best, they are my favorite team, or alternatively saying, not only do I only root for them, but I don't believe any of the other teams even exist or have ever existed. Which segues us nicely into talking about monotheism. This is not just the worship of one God, but the belief that there is only one God that exists. Period. That's monotheism. Now, as an aside, let me say that I've had people of other belief systems challenge me on the monotheism front. I had a Unitarian ask me one time kind of about my belief system. As I began to respond, the person said, well, I only believe in one God, to which I said, well, I only believe in one God as well. And the person responded, no, you don't. You believe in the Trinity. That is, by definition, three gods. Again, I said, no, just one. The person then replied, no, you believe in three gods, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, three different gods. You are not a monotheist. Here's the interesting thing about this exchange, and a helpful thing to remember when interacting with people of different belief systems. If you tell someone what they believe and they disagree, you are wrong. The two of you are arguing about what's going on inside one person's head, and the only person in the world that is privy to that information you're disagreeing with. So if you find yourself arguing with that person, then you are, by definition, wrong. Now, I've also witnessed Christians do the same thing with Muslims more times than I would like to recall, telling them what they believe and correcting them when the person of the Muslim faith disagrees with their assessment. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent. This isn't the problem with monotheism that I want to talk about. My point has nothing to do with the Trinity or Islam or interpreting the faith of other people. Okay, here's the problem with monotheism. Let's jump right into it now. If I believe and worship only one God, and you believe in and worship only one God, but we're of different faiths. We have given our gods different names, and that we think we believe in different gods at that point. Here's the question. Do we? Do we believe in different gods? Look, I remember many years ago, an older member of my congregation died, and her 3 adult daughters gathered together in my office to plan the funeral. Towards the end of our meeting, it came time to pick the scripture readings for the service, and the older daughter spoke up first and said, well, since Mom's favorite gospel was Matthew, I think we should definitely have a reading from Matthew as a part of her funeral service. Now, the truth is that people are so exhausted at this point that normally when the family gets together, the first person to recommend a reading, everybody kind of buys in. But not in this case. There was a moment of silence, and then the oldest daughter said, Mom didn't like Matthew. She always preferred the Gospel of Luke. Now, one for Matthew, one for Luke, and the deciding vote was going to fall to the youngest daughter. What was she going to say? But she said, you're both wrong. Mom loved the Gospel of Mark. We should definitely read from Mark. So now a question. Do these 3 people have different mothers or just understand their mother differently?
Well, that is a ridiculous comparison. The mother gave birth to them. Of course she was the mother of all 3. It hardly applies to religion.
So, okay, let me phrase it this way. So for those of us who believe in one God, didn't God, in the creative sense, give birth to all of us? And all of creation, for that matter?
Yes.
So if monotheists all believe in one God who created all of creation, couldn't it be argued that we all believe in the same God, but we just disagree about what God is like? Kind of like the three sisters.
Okay, I see your point.
So if you are a monotheist, if you worship only one God, and also strongly and fundamentally believe that there is only one God in existence, in other words, no other God has ever existed, that means that you believe you were created by the one and only God that created everything. And it also means that everyone else who is a monotheist also believes in the one God who created everything and everyone. You understand God's preferences as different, perhaps, but you believe in a single eternal God who created, again, everyone and everything, just like the other monotheists. So at that point, aren't we like the daughters who now really aren't arguing about having a different mother? They all came from the same woman. What they are arguing about is her preferences. Now, at this point, I want to be clear. This is an interesting, but it is in no way a simple or easy question. And people kind of at this point often want to jump to reducing it to something it's not. So a number of people I have heard many times encounter this thought about kind of monotheism that we all share, and they make this conclusion. Well, all religions are really the same. There really isn't any significant differences between all the religions. Now, universally and without exception, in my experience, that statement comes from someone who thinks she or he is being profound, but is really espousing a sweeping statement designed to allow them to cover up their lack of knowledge and, more important, their lack of desire to learn about other people and their differing beliefs. If I believe all faiths are the same, then I don't have to learn anything new about people who might differ from me. It's kind of a statement of laziness, in my estimation. To say that all faiths are the same, or even all cultures are the same, is just not true and allows the speaker to go through life without really being challenged to learn about the world around him or her. Now, there are many faiths that believe in the existence of only one God, and a compelling philosophical argument can be made that therefore everyone believes in the same creator God. But that does not lead people to similar faiths' belief. Look, one faith can diminish the place of women and believe that only men are really called by God. Another faith may believe that non-believers all go to hell without exception. Still yet another monotheistic person may believe in reincarnation. Yet another may believe in universal salvation. Some may understand God to be actively interacting in the world through miracles, and others believe in kind of a deist God that created the world and was done at that point. The idea of this podcast, and this is important, is not to say that we all believe the same things and that we have no significant differences, because that would just be stupidly untrue. The idea is that if we spent, I think, more time acknowledging that all of us who believe in one God share the belief in a world that was created by, well, that one God alone, perhaps we would see each other and our commonality, everyone, differently. And that's all for today. Oh yeah, the three sisters, yeah, they settled things quite easily. And nobody particularly changed their opinion at that point, but in the end, they shared the same mother, and she would have wanted them to get along peacefully with each other. And they recognize that. We all share the same creator, who I'm pretty sure would also want all of us to get along peacefully with each other, despite any differences. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do we worship the same God, or do you think absolutely not? Dan's off track on this one. And thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and like the video. It'll help this channel grow and help you get notified of future content like this. And on your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you.
Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.